The cold case decks are real playing cards, but each of the cards features an unsolved homicide or missing persons case. The idea is to get them in front of people already in jails and prisons, and maybe one of them has the tip needed to crack the case. Kansas has several hundred cold cases where investigators exhausted all known leads, but it doesn't mean they aren't looking for more.
The case really is never closed until it is solved.
KBI Director Kirk Thompson and Corrections Secretary Jeff Zamuda hope a special deck of cards might deal the next round of tips. Each card features a photo and information about an unsolved murder.
Our population plays cards quite frequently, and as they're sitting there playing cards, it'll create some awareness of these instances that need to be resolved, and maybe generate some conversation or some thought amongst that population, many of whom have either witnessed something, overheard a conversation, and may have some information that can ultimately bring resolution to those circumstances.
The idea for cold case decks started in Florida, where tips led to arrests in 3 cases in the first 3 months. About 20 states now have them, including Oregon, South Carolina. Connecticut has solved 20 cases since their cards debuted a decade ago.
Every case that we could get a resolution to get into the system for prosecution, that's a win. It's a win for the families, that's a win for the communities where the offenses took place.
There is segments of our population, that incarcerated population, that wants to do some good. They maybe want to atone for what they've done in their past and see an opportunity to help the community or to give back.
The KBI and Corrections Department took case submissions from law enforcement across the state. They reviewed a number of factors to select 52 from a range of geographic areas and backgrounds, from the 2013 killings of 4 people in Topeka's Central Park neighborhood to Margaret Teague, who went missing from Manhattan in 1998. Victims' families also were consulted and granted permission.
Their reaction, very, very grateful that people still have their loved one in mind and that they've not gone forgotten.
While it's important for families, there's a message to the perpetrators too.
They're always going to be looking over their shoulder and waiting for that knock on the door when we'll come visit them and hold them accountable for any of these cases.
Nelson Jones was a feisty, fearless 11-year-old growing up with 2 younger sisters in a small town in Dickinson County. No one could have imagined how their carefree childhood would be shattered. His sister shared very vivid, very difficult memories. Growing up in the small town of Hope, Kansas, Nelson Jones was every bit the typical boy.
He liked the outdoors, he loved to fish, baseball.
Melissa was the middle child. She recalls a big brother who was competitive.
See who could go the lowest, who could jump the farthest, who could run the fastest.
And fearless.
We would climb on top of the watershed, and he had tied a water hose to a tree, and we would climb on top of the shed and swing down from there like Tarzan. I mean, he always had crazy, wild ideas.
He was brave.
He was.
Brave enough that on October 27, 1990, Nelson insisted he could stay home alone while the rest of the family took a day trip to Wichita.
He had begged my mom to stay home. So he was 11, and he'd never stayed home by himself before, and he was supposed to hang out with somebody around the neighborhood, I think.
I think they got home around 6 p.m. Saturday evening. Nelson wasn't at home. There was a school carnival just a few blocks away at the school, so the family assumed that he had left and gone to the carnival.
We went up there and could not find him. Nobody had seen him, so we went back home.
While Melissa's mom got on the phone to call neighbors, her younger sister went into Nelson's room.
And she came out and she said, "Mom, I found Nelson and he looks all beat up." So we all went into the bedroom, and he was kneeling like you would to pray on the bed, and his upper half was laying on the bed. And I just remember he looked very pale and blue. Mom walked around the side and she grabbed his arm and to feel for a pulse, and I just remember her saying, "Oh God, Dennis, he's dead." And my stepdad ran up barefoot to get the police officers.
Nelson had been strangled. Current Dickinson County Sheriff Jerry Davis was a year into his job as a road patrol deputy and assigned to guard the scene. Years later, he'd look further into the case as a criminal investigator.
There were several witnesses that saw him playing with people and biking around town. They were all interviewed. It was kind of a community where everybody got along, everybody knew each other, and everybody trusted each other. So this was very shocking for the community at that time.
Shocking and devastating for a little girl.
And I was terrified. I was scared of the dark. I was scared to turn 11. I was afraid I would get killed too. To be in your own home and not feel safe in your own home was pretty traumatizing.
How hard is it to not know who did it?
I go in waves. Sometimes I'm really angry because I think about how it changed our family and the dynamics and all the pain that it brought.
The house is gone now. Melissa's mom passed away, but among the photos and a poem her mom wrote about a child at Heaven's Gate with big blue eyes, Melissa still finds hope. Nelson was chosen as the 3 of Hearts in the Kansas cold case deck. It's a new effort to get tips in unsolved cases by featuring them on playing cards. Melissa says she's grateful Nelson is not forgotten.
I often wonder what life would have been like with him here. What kind of brother would he be? What kind of uncle would he be to my children, you know?
Nelson was an innocent victim, and he deserves to have his story told. His family deserves to know what happened. Right now, Nelson would know what happened, and the person who killed Nelson would know what happened, and right now those are the only 2 leads we may have. And Nelson's gone. He can't speak for himself, so hopefully the evidence will speak for him.
I think I'd want to know why. Why did they do that? And maybe tell them what it did to our family, like the consequences of those actions, that choice that that person made. I'd like to know that they have a conscience, and I hope someday that they'll confess and seek forgiveness.
If you know anything about who killed Nelson or any unsolved case, call the Kansas Bureau of Investigation at 1-800-KS-CRIME. Melissa Brunner, 13 News.
Thomas, on this Mother's Day, a mother and her family continue looking for answers in a loss from 5 years ago. 13's Melissa Brunner has this week's Kansas cold case.
One night, 30-year-old Joshua Jernigan was playing soccer with the kids from his Central Topeka neighborhood. By the next morning, he was dead. And though many people heard something, his killer still has not been brought to justice.
Josh was a very funny kid growing up.
Joshua Jernigan grew up in the middle of a family with 6 children.
He liked to play soccer. He loved to cook eggs and rice. We were always taught to be kind, so he always tried to help people and look out for people.
Hurricane Katrina moved the family to Kansas, where older sister Jessica says Josh built his best life.
This one really shows who he was as a dad.
As a father of 4.
He loved being around his family.
Now Jessica, her siblings, and their mom, who lives in Mississippi, are left with memories.
But it's not a day that I go by that I don't think about him.
October 3rd, 2017, Josh was shot and killed inside his apartment in the 1300 block of Southwest Western.
There was some type of confrontation based off what we've gathered from witnesses that heard what occurred at the apartment complex.
Sergeant Jason Schumacher leads the Topeka Police Homicide Unit.
There was another female that was inside the apartment with him, adult female that was shot and critically wounded.
Also inside the apartment, the couple's 4 children who were unhurt.
Anytime you can walk into an apartment and shoot in front of children, yeah, you're a coward, you're evil.
Anytime you throw children into any of the homicides or any crime that happens, it gets more emotional because it happens with them around, and you worry about what could have happened to them or what's going to happen to them in the future because of the life-changing event that occurred.
Josh's girlfriend survived, but
the injuries that she sustained at the time of the event have made it so that she is not able to cooperate, not through her unwillingness, just because she's not able to.
Lives changed forever.
That's probably one of the hardest things to this date in my life that I have had to do, was to identify my brother. I wouldn't wish it on nobody.
5 years later, the family and police continue searching for answers. Josh is the 4 of hearts in the Kansas cold case deck, playing cards that will be distributed in the state's prisons and jails, trying to generate new leads.
Somebody knows something, and if it was your child, as a mother, you'll want some answer, you'll want some closure.
There's evidence that's been collected, there's witnesses that have been talked to, and we need something that puts the two together.
His life was just really taken away from him. And not only taken away from him, but taken away from his 4 children.
As much as they'd like closure, the family also tries not to dwell on the past.
I'm not bitter, I'm not angry, I'm not none of that, because I feel like that would be giving the person that did it too much power. So I'd rather live my life like my brother lived his, which was helping people, showing love, loving on the children, having your family together. I'd rather just show love and kindness the way he did.
We want justice for my son so we can move on.
If you know anything about Josh Jernigan's death or any cold case, call the KBI at 1-800-KS-CRIME. That's 1-800-572-7463. Melissa Brunner, 13 News.
This week's cold case takes us all the way back to 1984 at a home in rural Shawnee County. 13's Melissa Brunner met with the victim's son.
Butch Lavin met a lot of people in his line of work, but investigators have yet to find the one who took his life in his Shawnee County home and left 2 boys without a father.
He was a fun person. When he worked, and then when we played. We went to a lot of dirt track races and stuff like that. Just didn't seem like I really got to know him that well.
Russ Lavin was just 11 years old when his father, Butch Lavin, was murdered. His parents were divorced, and Russ and his older brother were at their mom's when she told them the news.
And that something really bad has happened, and that our dad was had died, passed away. Yeah.
As an 11-year-old, what questions come into your head?
Something like this happened, and why the world could be so mean, I guess, that takes somebody.
Butch Lavin was found dead February 9, 1984 in his home in the 4200 block of Southeast 85th Street, a rural area just west of Paulin Road.
He was a gas service employee and by all accounts was very well liked, had a good sense of humor.
Pat McLaughlin is the Shawnee County District Attorney's cold case investigator.
The victim answered the door to the trailer, and when the door was opened, he was shot.
The sheriff's office put the resources of its major case squad on the investigation, but the leads ran cold.
There is unsolvable crimes.
It was brought back to the forefront several times over the years and is now among the largest case files the sheriff's office has.
He knew a lot of people, and so consequently there were a lot of different avenues of possible motives or just different people could be involved that the investigators at the time had to go down and follow up and look at. And so oftentimes, the police department, sheriff's department has a somewhat of an idea of who may be involved, and in this case there was just a lot of different possibilities.
McLaughlin and the Lavin family hope raising the possibilities one more time can lead to answers. Butch Lavin is the 6 of spades in the Kansas cold case deck, playing cards that will be distributed in the state's prisons and jails, trying to generate tips.
It's really tough not knowing why or who or the reason. I would just hope somebody would get involved if somebody knew something.
Someone needs to be held accountable for this case and for others. He did not deserve to die, and it would be nice to get him justice and his family justice as well.
Because Russ says the killer took more than just a life.
What did that person take from you?
He took my father, and a lot of memories and a lot of time that I didn't get to spend with him.
If you know anything about Butch Lavin's death or any cold case, call the KBI at 1-800-KS-CRIME.
A new effort is underway to heat up cold cases. We told you last week about the cold case deck playing cards the Kansas Department of Corrections developed to give to prisoners. Each card features an unsolved homicide or missing persons case. One of the Topeka cold cases in the deck is the 2019 death of John Waller. 13's Melissa Brunner looks back at the crime and what the effort to find answers means to his family.
John Waller wasn't answering texts or calls. When his family asked police to check on him, officers found him dead inside his home. So far, no one's been arrested.
My entire memory of my life, he is right there. He was just John. He was my brother.
John Waller was an avid cyclist, Laura Atkinson's little brother.
He knew what he loved and he did it. He was an adventurous, outdoorsy, independent, hands-on guy who he attacked life.
In June 2019, John didn't show up for his job as an engineer for the Kansas Department of Transportation, and Laura, who lives out of state, was coming to Topeka for a visit.
I had texted John to make sure he was going to be in town. He traveled a lot, and there was just not an answer. And then Father's Day went by, and my dad didn't really hear from John, and that's when we knew, something was wrong.
June 17th, 2019, officers checked on John at his home in the 700 block of Southwest Wayne.
Mr. Waller was located at his residence. It was very apparent that he was deceased at the time and that the crime had probably occurred within a couple weeks before he was actually located.
John was 36 years old. Sergeant Jason Schumacher leads the Topeka Police Homicide Unit. He says investigators talked to people throughout the neighborhood, co-workers, family, friends.
He didn't really lead a lifestyle that you would think would lead to something like this. However, he was just in his own home and it happened to him.
He says the crime occurring up to 2 weeks before John's body was found brings added challenge.
We have to go back through a lot more details, film from the area, speaking to different people about a greater amount of time, rather than be able to say that it happened the night before or just, at the time of the call.
Still, he's confident the information is out there.
We need someone to come forward to help us piece some of the evidence that we have together. Piece some of the witness accounts together.
If there's any way that could prevent, another family from going through what we're going through, I can promise you that's one of the most positive outcomes there could be. What I know now is this could happen to absolutely anyone.
While her family waits for answers, Laura holds on to the lessons John left behind.
He was just a really kind person. I gotta be more like John. I gotta remember to be more like that. He had such an impact.
We'll feature another Kansas cold case next Sunday on 13 News at 10.
We've been telling you for several weeks now about the Kansas Cold Case Deck. It's a special set of playing cards from the Kansas Department of Corrections aimed at generating new tips in unsolved crimes. The oldest case in the deck is the 1976 killing of Terrell Achabach. The 18-year-old Topeka woman set out on a walk with a puppy and never made it home.
I always think of Terrell as laughing.
Renee Achabach Summers was only 10 years old when her big sister Terrell died. Their bond captured in photos and artwork Terrell made just for her.
She was many things: creative, an animal lover, fond of the arts, independent. She was just a lot of fun. She was always singing and joking, and yeah, she was a great big sister.
The laughter ended April 26, 1976.
Body of a deceased white female was found near Southwest 2nd and Southwest Urish Road. She was found badly beaten and partially nude, and she had also multiple puncture wounds to her body that came from a very unique type of tool.
It just has a profound effect on your life and on the lives of my entire family, my parents, and you just don't ever get over something like that. It's just always with you.
Terrell was 18 years old, living not far from downtown Topeka. Around 7 a.m. the day she died, she set off walking.
She was planning on returning a small puppy to the veterinarian hospital that she was working at. She also told her boyfriend that she would either call a friend for a ride or would walk. The puppy was actually found near her unharmed that day. And yeah, that's all we know.
Detectives hope this will help them learn more. Terrell is the Queen of Diamonds in the Kansas cold case deck. The cards will be distributed in the state's jails and prisons in hopes of sparking conversations that could lead to new information even more than 4 decades later.
For the families of the victim and for the victim themselves, that we owe it to them to do our best, to do our job, and to get these things solved.
And my entire family, we appreciate any and all attempts to get more information. I know the case is never closed. That word closure you hear all the time, you don't ever get closure, but it would be nice to know the why and the who.
No, so they can focus on Terrell's life and put her death to rest.
She was loved by everyone. We share, we talk about her. We just have made sure she's not forgotten.
If you know anything about Terrell Achabach's death or any cold case, call the Kansas Bureau of Investigation at 1-800-KS-CRIME. Melissa Brunner, 13 News.
Welcome back into 13 News here at 10. This week's cold case is especially frustrating because it includes 4 victims. 13's Melissa Brunner has a look.
It's been more than 8 years since a woman was found shot not far from the Washburn campus. That discovery would lead to another startling discovery at her home. December 1st, 2013, 2 boys out skateboarding a few blocks from the Washburn campus made a horrific discovery.
2 boys found a female behind the strip mall in the 1300 block of Southwest 21st.
The woman was Carla Avery. She was shot in the head, left behind the building, her car parked in the car wash. Pat McLaughlin, then with Topeka Police, was the first detective on scene.
Officers then went to her home address, which was in the 1600 block of Southwest Central Park, and upon arriving, they found some evidence that was very concerning. So at that time, they called the Topeka Police response team to come out to the scene.
Inside the house, they would find 3 more people shot and killed. Carla's ex-husband, Marvin Woods, their friend, Tamisha Lee, and Eric Avery.
They're very beautiful people. They didn't deserve what happened to them.
Carla's brother and the father of Carmen Nard's son.
I would describe Carla as a very loud, funny person. She had a big personality. She loved the kids.
4 victims. More than 8 years later, few answers.
Somebody has to know something. Somebody knows something.
The investigation led into people they knew, people they associated with, probably over in the hundreds, over 100 for sure, of different people that officers and detectives have talked to over the years. We do believe that the people involved are from this community and that there are still people here that have direct knowledge of what happened, and some of which we've probably already talked to, and we just need them to be more forthcoming and give us the information that we need.
Was this random?
No, we don't believe so.
Carmen said the families are grateful the case is included in the Kansas cold case deck, the Ace of Diamonds. The playing cards will be distributed in Kansas prisons and jails in hopes someone sees the case, knows something, and says something.
I just pray that wherever they are, that they pay, that their conscience eats them alive. If anyone knows about it, I pray that their conscience eats them alive, to the point that they have to open their mouth and say something.
We do have evidence in the case, but we need a witness that is willing to do the right thing on just a horrible tragedy.
A tragedy that left a little boy who's now a young man without a father and an aunt.
Their spirits were with us, but his milestones that he's reaching in his life, it's just sad that his family's not there to experience it with him.
Carmen says she understands fear and mistrust, but she hopes people who hear this understand one thing outweighs them all.
It sounds so simple, but it's something so big. Closure is something that the families need. Imagine if it was your family. You wouldn't want to go all these years. It's about to be 10 years. You don't want to go all these years with unanswered questions. You raising kids that don't have any closure. My son's about to go off to college. Just like he needs that, at least have the closure in his heart to know he's at rest. They're at rest.
Carmen's son earned his high school citizenship award, and he's headed to college on a football scholarship this fall. If you know anything about who killed his father and the others, or any unsolved case, call the Kansas Bureau of Investigation at 1-800-KS-CRIME. Melissa Brunner, 13 News.
Thank you for that, Melissa. You can see all of our cold case features under signature stories on our website at WIBW.com.
No one knows what happened to Margaret Ty after her boyfriend reportedly dropped her off somewhere around here along McCall Road in Manhattan, November 24th, 1998.
To this date, one, we've never recovered any remains, and two, there's no concrete sightings or any activity.
Gerald Schmidt was the lead investigator on the case for the Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Office. He remembers Margaret's father and sister coming to file a missing persons report a couple weeks later, December 10th.
They felt that probably she met with foul play because everything was unusual. No contact, her banking, her money that she needed every month. She had a check coming in, was never touched.
Margaret lived with a man named Michael Klingseek in a home near St. George.
He did have a social history with her of putting her in the hospital and having her go to the crisis centers. She told her family, if anything ever happened to me, he killed me. That was her words. But whether that happened or not, I don't know. We do know he was the last one to be with her.
Ann Schmidt says the boyfriend is not the only one who could have meant Margaret harm.
Her lifestyle, surely other things could have happened, yes.
So many questions, so few people left to answer them.
She did, like doing the right and barbecue, and she was kind of easygoing person.
Margaret's father spoke with 13 News about the case in 2005. He's passed away now, so have two of Margaret's sisters, and so has the boyfriend, Michael Klingseek.
If we had a body, we could have, or remains, we could have probably, drawn some more conclusions. And the other thing would be if someone somewhere befriended someone and had information at this point, and would finally come forward.
That latter piece is why Pottawatomie County Sheriff Shane Yeager, who also was a detective on the case, submitted it for the cold case deck. Margaret is the 8 of hearts in a special deck of playing cards the KBI and Department of Corrections are distributing to jails and prisons.
The association with the people that they were with may have some idea where she may be, and to put that in a deck of cards that would be located in institutions would give us the likelihood of maybe finding out where she was.
It's a drive to find answers and bring closure for Margaret, for her family, and for themselves too.
We don't have these cases that are unsolved, and this being one of them is the biggest thing, that we have not located Margaret, and we would like to find her.
I worked pretty hard on it, and I kind of took it personal, I guess, being with the family and interviewing the family. We'd like to close the case.
If you know anything about what happened to Margaret Ty, call the Kansas Bureau of Investigation at 1-800-KS-CRIME.